I literally time traveled. I went to a therapist once that suggested that we do EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. It's used for post traumatic stress, for anxiety, and for trauma. The idea here is that you move your eyes from side to side, whether using a light or an image, something like that. And what it does is it takes you to a place in your past where you desensitize from it and you reprocess it. You basically, what we talk about on this podcast all the time, alchemize it into something new. Holla, trauma survivor into trauma riser. This is how it works. But let me get back to my story. I literally time traveled. He asked me, what do you want to work on today? And I said, oh, I want to work on my weight, something so normal. It's what we're obsessed with. Certainly, I have been obsessed with it. I said, I just want to work on my weight. Like, why do I sometimes put weight on? Why don't I sometimes? And he said, okay. So we started to do tick, 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 back and forth, back and forth. There I was sitting on the couch. He was in front of me. Great. Just had white beard, older man, was amazing. I felt so safe. Back and forth, and bam, bam. I'm telling you, I didn't have a memory. No, I time traveled all the way back into my bedroom when I was in the third grade. I must have been 10 years old, and I was sitting on my bed in that room. It was a little bit dark, must have been like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I remember I had big windows that overlooked this field. And listen, when you're 10, that's not pleasant. I just think of Stephen King movies, right? When you're 10 and there's like this vast field in front of your home. I was in a city, it's just that they hadn't built any houses on this field yet. In any case, what I felt was what I was feeling when I was 10. It was a time of great loneliness for me and great instability. And I think all of you can go back to those moments in your childhood of deep loneliness. And the room represented that. And it felt unstable. I felt unprotected. There was a lot going on in terms of my own personal trauma. A lot. There was so much going on in my family home at that time, that very particular time. And it was all there. And that's where my weight gain began. And the messaging that I received in that moment through my body was that the weight was serving as a paperweight. And for some of you young folks who don't know what a paperweight is, it's an object that is extremely heavy, let's say a dome of glass, that you used to put over paper so that the paper would not move. And the messaging that I was getting during this EMDR session was that my weight had served me as a grounding mechanism, as let's say a weighted blanket for the level of loneliness and instability that I was experiencing that I didn't have words for at 10, at 9, at 11, at 8. I had no words for it. No way would I've ever thought, oh, I'm super lonely and I'm super unstable and I feel unprotected and unsafe. I would have never been able to voice that. But my body knew. My body knew what to do. My body knew to get nice and heavy and wrap itself around me. My body knew before I knew. And I have such love for it. And I remember coming out of that session swirling. It's a very, very powerful and very effective technique. Because, of course, after I came out, let's say, we were able to reprocess it. And I was able to have a lot of compassion and love for when I put weight on in moments of instability. And I can go back and track my photos and my videos. Moments of instability where I added weight to my body to paperweight it. I love you, body. But that's what we're going to talk about today in this video. Your body knows before you know. Welcome back to the Heaven on Earth podcast, the podcast where psychotherapy meets spirituality, where inner journeys become outer abundance, and where together we explore the visible and invisible dimensions of being human. I'm your host, Claudia Cauterucci. We're talking about human operating systems, and now we are with the body. I'm so inspired to talk about the body, and it's coming from someone who's struggled with loving themselves and loving their body all their life. We are born into what we've been talking about, into a system that promotes, that helps us, that assists us in hating our bodies. And yet, here we have got a treasure trove. And I see it all the time. And this is why I had a client show up for a session the other day. And she said, "Oh, I only want to do it through phone." And I had to say to her, "Listen, I do not do sessions just by phone, because not only as a psychodynamic psychotherapist, but as someone who is observing everything that's going on, twitches in the eye, if you're moving your foot, I like to see the whole person, because your body is giving me information, not just what's coming out of your mouth." We've talked a lot about reading the subtitles. Well, your body has data and messaging that I am reading. And this client turned on the video, and brilliant, articulate client who could explain her childhood, had processed it, had understood it. Maybe someone just like you who has high IQ, high EQ, has done a lot of work on themselves, because I tend to believe that that's who my audience is. Folks like you who are interested in understanding themselves more. Absolutely. She was like this. She had a lot of insight. And every time we got near a particular memory, she would start pressing her thumb into the palm of her hand, hard, and she didn't even know. So her hands were giving me feedback more than what the story she was telling me, because the way she was telling me the story, which happens all the time, people will narrate their trauma as if it's something in the past, it's super normal, over it, done with it. And yet I'm noticing other parts of them. I have one client who starts twirling her hair when she's talking about her childhood. And immediately it's as almost she regresses into being a little girl. I have multiple examples about this, but what I'm really saying is your body is remembering and telling its own story. So this is what we're going to talk about today. The gap between what we can explain and what we're actually carrying. So we were not taught this sequence. In fact, we were not taught to notice what the body is constantly telling us. And the way the sequence works is that something happens before you have language, or before your psyche is capable of digesting what has happened, of understanding it, of finding the rationale or the logic to it. For example, in the case of abuse or extreme trauma or war, but your body is registering. It's saying, is this a threat or is this safety? Is this closeness or is this danger? Am I being held or am I alone? Language comes later. I just reviewed the module in my empath leader training, module number 6, where I talk about psychic abilities. And one of the things that I say is that language, actual language, words are our second language. Energetic sensations and information in our body tells us things first. Language comes later, sometimes years later. By the time you have the words to explain what happened to you, your body has built an entire response system around it, a set of instincts, contractions, early warning signals, fight, freeze, flight, fawn responses, and early warning signals that are the undercurrent of every conversation you will have. This is why you can understand something completely with your mind, but it continues to happen. You feel it happening, like emotionally eating. You get it. You get it. Or like smoking. You get that it harms you, but something is craving it because it's part of the system that was built. You can know now that you're safe, but your body still braces as if the danger is still there. You're still living in relationship as if you're reliving those dangers. Insight lives in the mind, but the body basically was the first one to show up in that room. It knew first, and it's been trying to tell you ever since through tension, through digestive issues, through migraine headaches, through feeling exhausted when you're around that particular person, through that reflex to get small, to shrink, and you haven't registered why. So as Bessel van der Kolk says, the GOAT on post-traumatic stress disorder, the body keeps the score quietly, faithfully, sometimes loudly, until someone decides to listen. The body memorize. It's a memorization instrument. The mind knows the dates, names, all prefrontal cortex stuff. The mind thinks it's deciding, but who knows? We've talked about it because all of the human operating systems are connected. Who is the true decider? What's driving those decisions? Possibly what your body has memorized. Your body is a storyteller. Every scar on your body tells a story. You've earned those stripes. Every flinch tells a story. Every startle response tells a story. Every urge to reach out tells a story. Every reaction to not be touched tells a story. Every urge to shut down tells a story. No. I'm not a hugger. Tells a story. Every arousal tells a story. If you're sexually driven all the time, multiple times a day, there's a story there, and it includes your other operating system. The body remembers everything and waits for someone to finally read what it memorized. It's like a full-on library we're walking around. And Bessel van der Kolk says in The Body Keeps the Score, trauma lives in the present tense long after the event has ended. It lodges in the nervous system, in muscle, in your breath, and it keeps replaying itself fully. It's on repeat until it's finally metabolized with treatments like EMDR, with all sorts of treatments. I'm not going to talk about that today, but it's got to be digested and metabolized because, as I like to say it is frozen in your body. Gabor Maté also says this, and I'm paraphrasing. If you don't know Gabor Maté, go look him up. He's amazing. He talks a lot about addictions and how the body remembers events that were too harsh for our mind and our psyches to take in. The parts of an experience that were way too much, way too overwhelming, too frightening, too lonely, like me in that bedroom, for a little person's mind to understand, for a young person's mind. So the body held them instead. I'm hoping you'll fall in love with your body by the end of this because you'll realize what a beautiful home it's been to us. The body has been so many things at once. Your body is an antenna, for example. It picks up what the room is not saying. It picks up the tension before the argument. It picks up that daddy is super quiet as he's driving. It picks up that mom is more stressed than usual. It picks it up energetically. The body is a protector, your protector. Look at my story, and protection will look differently for each of you. Sometimes it looks like strength. Sometimes it looks like what happened to me. It protected me with my weight. This happens a lot to people who might be being either physically abused or sexually abused. It's the way that the body is trying to build distance from harm. It will do the opposite too. It will drop a ton of weight, picking up with the antenna danger. Your body is your translator. I talk about that instinct of disgust. When we talk about emotions, you'll hear me talk about disgust and what an important emotion that is. It's a reaction. It's that's gross. That's ick. The ick. That's an important reaction because your body's picking up on something. Maybe that doctor is creepy. Maybe that person you thought was your friend, but over time you see them doing things over and over and over where you're sort of repulsed, but it's hard to say that. But your body is knowing it. Little by little, this leaking away of respect or admiration that turns into disgust and ick. I want you to see that it's an actual physical response and it's there for a reason. Your body is an alarm, right? When I'm teaching meditation, one of the ways in the dynamic meditation method, I teach how in Buddhism, one of the things that they track is checking your breath. If your breath is fast and shallow, if you have a tightness in your body, well, it means that you're in some sort of hypervigilant state or you're stressed. You're certainly not relaxed. And how do we know that? Through checking in with the body. Your body is a radar. Hypervigilance, believe it or not, is an actual radar calibration that literally calibrated itself to spaces that required that level of danger seeking. Of course, what's happened is we get stuck. That lever gets stuck in normal, safe situations. But at one point, it was your body saying, danger, 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 danger. Stay alert. Your body's also the opposite of all of that. It's a transmitter. It transmits mammalian love, affection, pleasure, play. All of those are actually signs of safety. Who do you laugh with? Who do you play with? Who are you affectionate with? Who do you snuggle with? That's your body saying, I'm safe. And if you're transmitting that to others, you're saying, you are safe with me. It's a safe landing. I love watching all of these reels of baby elephants in a herd of beavers who cuddle with each other. I mean, you see this mammalian provision of safety, of mammalian love. And we do it with each other. Your body is a safe landing. It's also a pharmacy. I always say, like, your CNS is your CVS. For those of you who have CVSs, it's an American pharmacy because it's producing oxytocin when we feel safe. What's the first thing you're supposed to do when you have your baby is put the baby on your chest, whether you're the mother or the father, so the baby can smell you, can feel you, can be swaddled by you. You feel serotonin when you're fully seen. I mean, the level of natural pharmaceuticals that's in this instrument is amazing. You are a millionaire in pharmaceuticals, natural ones in your body. The body, the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful body. It is the earth part of the heaven that I talk. It is the material vessel that carries the spirit. It is the incarnated suit we were given to navigate in this particular life. I joke sometimes, and I like to actually put myself through this exercise in order to drop into the beautiful now moment. It's one of the things that I do as an act of meditation and that I suggest that people do as an act of meditation is I tell myself when I return to the spirit, I know what I'll miss. I'll miss the smell of baking bread. I'll miss melting cheese or the taste of it. I'll miss the smell and hugging my dog. I'll miss hugging my son and actually feeling his height and his strength. I'll miss walking barefoot everywhere. I'll miss brushing my hair. These are all things to do with the body. I'll miss swimming. The body is your bridge, my bridge, our bridge to experiencing this world. Every bit of it, arriving through skin and breath and nose and tongue, touch. And still, we've got to be honest about all of it. This same vessel, this same beautiful body is also a place where great pain lives, where horrific pain lives. It can also make us feel extremely powerless through what others can do to us through our bodies. Torture, abuse, trauma, even over tickling, which sounds fun at first, but is not if it continues to go on. Your body can be used against you. It can be distorted, weaponized. It could be made into a site of harm. I mean, what do we do in wartime? We send bodies to war. We're not thinking personalities. We're not thinking, who are you? How are you uniquely you? No, 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 no. We need a whole bunch of bodies to go to war. Certainly women and children know what it's like to have their bodies used against them. And so it makes logical and perfect sense that we leave our bodies. We disassociate. And I talk about that a lot in the empath leader training, or even with the dynamic meditation method of this idea. I've talked about it on the podcast all the time of coming home, of coming back, of remembering what it's like to come back here. But that process and that journey can be extremely difficult when our bodies have been cruelly used against us. This is where healing has to return to, through the body, always through. The Brazilian theologian and psychoanalyst Rubem Alves, look him up, by the way. His poetry is just, it's so sensual and passionate and smart. Anyway, look him up. He described the body as sacred ground itself, holding memory, holding a kind of wisdom that the mind hasn't caught up to. Alves reframes the body not as a mechanical tool, but as a living garden that we have to nurture and seed. And it requires desire, sensory awakening, and love to bloom. For Alves, a garden is a manifestation of paradise here on earth. And many of you who use gardening as a meditation, you'll love this because it likens our bodies to a garden. It is actually a reclamation of our birthright for happiness and beauty. Okay, so let's get out of metaphor. Y'all know I love metaphor. I love symbols. I actually think that metaphor and symbols are a spiritual language. Certainly, it's how I use metaphor and symbols. But let's move it into some architecture. Let's move it from poetry into physiology. Remember, we take a topic and we look at it multidimensionally. So underneath the antenna, the alarm, the radar runs one long wandering nerve called the vagus. It's the longest nerve in the body, and it goes all the way through you, all the way down. It threads from the base of your skull down through your throat, heart, your lungs, your gut, touching nearly every organ that keeps you alive. Scientists actually call it the wandering nerve for exactly that reason. It travels everywhere listening. This is a nerve that decides in a fraction of a second and completely outside of your conscious control whether the space you're in is safe enough for you to relax or dangerous enough that you have to brace. And researchers call this neuroception. It's perception that happens before perception, a kind of body level clairvoyance. And it's telling you stuff in every space you're going to be in or have ever been in. When the vagus nerve reads safety, your face softens, your voice finds its natural warmth, your heart rate finds a slower rhythm that prepares you for connection. And this is how we're supposed to be living. Open, curious, relational. Scientists call this the ventral vagal state. It's also called the sympathetic system response, the rest and digest response. I call it coming home. When the vagus nerve reads danger, your body moves into mobilization. You get a rush, a downpouring of cortisol and adrenaline, and your muscles, right, prepare for fight or flight. That's why the middle part of your body, your stomach, contracts, because in those moments of danger, your body's not thinking, hey, I want to eat. It thinks, oh, I have no time to eat. So all the blood rushes to the limbs. And this is a parasympathetic state. And people use this example all the time. It's actually preparing us to run from danger, run from the tiger in the olden days. But when the danger is large enough, inescapable enough, the body does another thing. It drops into shutdown. It freezes. It immobilizes to save energy. Your feelings go mute and you sort of flop. In your powerlessness, it's almost like how a prey reacts when they're in the mouth of a predator. And the idea is that maybe if I'm very still, it's the safest option for me. And I want to just use a parenthesis here. First, imagine when you're powerless or held down during abuse or torture, or if you're a child, imagine the levels of cortisol and adrenaline that are just pumping through your body. That gets memorized, and that becomes post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, this can happen on a plane that seems unstable, in a house, in a volatile home, in an alcoholic home, with the jingling of the keys when you hear the abuser come home. There's so many ways that humanity has suffered this, particularly through any type of war, including the war that starts at home. The other thing is this is where we dissociate. If we have to get very powerless and still, we leave the body. It's a protective mechanism that I find so kind and tender because the body is enduring things that the psyche and the mind cannot withstand. But I also want to emphasize when people ask, why didn't this person leave those situations? It's because they're in an energetic, spiritual, emotional, psychological, and mental freeze state. It is learned helplessness. And look that word up. It's a psychological term. I'm not going to go into it today, but please, let's not be judgmental of the folks who find it very hard to leave. They're in a constant freeze, dissociated state. For example, I talk about it a lot when I'm talking about narcissism. The person who stays for a long time next to the narcissist will, what I call, zombie out. They have to not be in their bodies. Anyway, I digress per usual. So let's get back to the vagus nerve. So those are survival strategies for the mammalian nervous system. These are ancient, they're intelligent, and they're running in you in exactly the way they were designed to run in. These are the fight, flight, freeze, and nowadays we've added fawn as a response. It's an attempt to overly please the perpetrator or the abuser. In mammals or in animals, what you will see is the prey go into a pose that seems subservient to the predator. And yeah, that's what fawning is in humans as well. And over pleasing. But get this, get how powerfully moving this is. Connection is medicine for this system. When you are held by someone safe, your body releases oxytocin. Sometimes it's called the bonding hormone or the trust hormone. Remember, we were talking about your body as a pharmacy. Your heart rate actually improves in real time. Serotonin actually rises when you are being seen by another, genuinely and truly seen. We can learn to come back to the feeling of safety, the root chakra, the healed root chakra feeling of safety, stability, security, and belonging through connection. It takes time, but it can be done. Yay! Neuroplasticity. We can create new neural networks, no matter the trauma and no matter the age. Our bodies are built cell by cell to reward closeness. And I would say starting with closeness to the self, coming home to you first to reward safety and to reward love. Amor. This is the scientific romance underneath everything that I teach. The vagus nerve, the neuroception, the chemistry of connection. Daniel Siegel calls it the interbiology of attachment. It's all proof that your body has quietly, steadily, with devotion, rooted for you to come home to safety this entire time. So we've spent this season talking about paradigms, the inherited beliefs that's running underneath and constantly in our perception. Remember our perceptual fields and beliefs that were installed into us before we were able to consent to that. Those paradigms live everywhere. In your thinking, yes. And also in your antenna, in your protector, in your translator, in your alarm, in every role we just named. So a lot of healing conversations might skip this part. We get very good at explaining ourselves, at building our narrative. We're good at naming the pattern. We're good at understanding the why. All important things, but still the body runs the old program. And so when we talk about somatic healing, breath work, opening up our hips where trauma is stored, we are trying to tell the body it can dememorize or alchemize what it memorized. We are in relationship to it. It wants us to go back to safety, and we want to tell it that it can go back to safety. This is volume 1 in my 3 volumes. Before integration, before leadership, before anything that's coming this season on this podcast, there is this closet, the place where all of it got stored, and it's unsorted. It's messy, and it got stored there before you had any words. A coherent self is built on top of a calm central nervous system, a nervous system that feels settled. We cannot build our new identity as a human or as a humanity unless we do this work with our body. We gotta know that danger has passed. The bridge starts here, and this is where it holds. So if you've been wondering, hey, wait, insight hasn't been enough. I've read all the books. I've gone to the therapy. I've done the groups. I've done the retreats. Why you can understand yourself so well, know your patterns, but still feel stuck. Same reaction every single time. Listen to me. You built exactly what you needed to survive, to cope and to adapt. It was brilliant at the time. Your body did exactly what it had to do, what it was built to do. Thank you, body. It kept you safe with the only information it had as early as it had to. The work now is giving your body the update. We're going to show it slowly on purpose that this moment is safe, that this room is different from the room it memorized that it had to brace. Your body knew first. This season, we're helping it catch up. We're doing the updates to everything that you've already learned. I love the reels of babies or children who just move their body. They're electric. They hear music and the body responds with a natural beat, with a swirl. Our bodies are here to respond. And like everything else in our human operating system, why don't we become the healed pilot of our human operating systems? Take care of your inner world because your inner world is always shaping your world. And by the way, quickly before I sign off, I want to thank all of you who have been reaching out to me to be guests on my podcast. I will get back to you. Let me just get through this season. I'm working on the 30-day reset, and I'm also working on the Empath Leader Cartagena, Colombia retreat. So I'm a little full over this summer, but I will be getting back to you about being guests on the podcast very soon. And thank you so much for being a listener and wanting to hop on here and have some good conversations. So until next time, borrowing from the great Casey Kasem, keep your feet on the ground, but keep reaching for the skies. This is Heaven on Earth, a portal to possibility.